Well, hello. All right, hello, Albany, Georgia. Well, I feel good. It's raining change in Georgia. Thank you all so much for gathering on this rainy night in Georgia. We are on the precipice of change. It's been a long time coming, but a change is going to come. I want to thank Pastor Daniel Simmons for his kind and generous introduction. I'm grateful to Robert Aaron, the mayor of Dawson, Commissioner John Howard, all of you who are gathered tonight. There's something happening in Georgia. There is a spirit and a power and an energy that is moving and drawing people together from all walks of life, various races and stations, because we understand that we are in this together. And it's so very important because there are forces still at work, part of the old way, who are trying to divide us. They engage in the politics of division. People who have no vision traffic in division. They do not know how to lead us, and so they're trying to divide us. And that comes at a time when we can least afford to be divided. We've got major issues confronting us. We're dealing with a once-in-a-century global pandemic that reminds us that all of us have a stake in the health care of our neighbor. We should have known before this pandemic that we need our neighbors to have health care. But an airborne deadly disease reminds me that if my neighbor coughs, that could have implications not only for my neighbor, but for me. That doesn't mean that my neighbor is my enemy. That means that we are tied in a single garment of destiny. Dr. King said, caught up in an inescapable network of mutuality, whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. Dr. King said that I cannot be all that I ought to be until you are all that you ought to be. And you cannot be all that you ought to be until I am all that I ought to be. And that's why all across this state, people of various races, men and women, class, differences in orientation, religious sensibilities, are coming together saying that we are one Georgia, we are one state, we are one America, we are one humanity, and the people are rising up to reclaim their democracy. Georgia's on everybody's mind. And I've got a feeling that the same way we surprised the nation on November 3rd and gave those 16 electoral votes to Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, we've got a message for America. You ain't seen nothing yet. Wait till January 5th. We're just getting started. So I'm deeply honored to be running for the United States Senate. You're looking at an example, an iteration of the American dream. I grew up in public housing. My dad's from Scriven County in Burke County, Georgia. My mom's from Waycross, Georgia. Somebody's from Waycross, Georgia. She grew up in the 1950s, a black teenager like so many others, picking somebody else's cotton and somebody else's tobacco. But because this is the United States of America, because every generation ought to do better than the generation before them, because in America we have a path to make the country greater. A couple weeks ago, my beloved mother, the 82-year-old hands that used to pick somebody else's cotton, picked her youngest son to be a United States Senator from the great state of Georgia. And so contrary to those who are trying to stir up the old forms of bigotry, the old prejudices that bedevil our beloved republic, I love America. I love it enough to lay it on the line at this defining moment so that children can have a future. I grew up in public housing, one of 12 children in my family. My dad used to wake me up every morning, told me to wake up and get dressed and get going, put shoes on, and get ready. Well, I'm ready. I'm ready to be your next United States Senator. I'm ready to push against the forces that are trying to deny and diminish the votes and the voices of the people of Georgia. Right now, Kelly Loeffler should be standing with the people of Georgia. Instead, she is with those who would undermine the voices of the people of Georgia. How can you represent us if you do not respect our votes? She's thinking about herself. She has spent her career thinking about herself. But the problem is she's using your seat to take care of herself. She's trying to scare you, trying to make you afraid of me because she's afraid of you. She's afraid that you understand that she's been using that Senate seat to which she was appointed in order to enrich herself. She's afraid that you understand that when she heard about the coronavirus pandemic, she was so focused on sheltering her investments that she forgot about the folks who were sheltering in at home. She is a high net worth Republican donor. She and her husband have given millions of dollars. They've been pouring millions of dollars into that seat and into Republican races. But Kelly Loeffler has a problem. The folk who sold her that seat don't own that seat. It belongs to the people of Georgia. And come January 5th, I've got a feeling that the people of Georgia are coming to get their seat back. Do you want your seat back? We are the ones who can stand up in this defining moment and cause our country to stretch a little bit more, push a little bit closer to our ideals, so that we might have government that works for everybody, so that we can deal with wealth inequality in our country. It's a contradiction, as we have begun to do during this pandemic, to call people essential workers while refusing to pay them an essential wage. If they are essential workers, provide for them essential benefits. Make sure that they have health care and that they can retire with dignity. We see the dysfunction in Washington. Over 340,000 Americans dead and counting. And still, amidst this dysfunction, we couldn't get the $2,000 stimulus package passed. They wouldn't even put it up for a vote. Mitch McConnell must think that that's his house. The people of Georgia have a chance to show Mitch McConnell that it doesn't belong to him, it belongs to you. And when Kelly Loeffler could have stood up to him and insisted that he put it up for a vote, she didn't do that. One thing I can say about my opponent, you know, Mom said if you can't say something nice about somebody, don't say anything at all. Well, let me try. One thing I can say about Kelly Loeffler is she's consistent. She was thinking about herself before she went to the Senate. She spent the last 10 months thinking about herself. Maya Angelou said, when people show you who they are, believe them the first time. So Kelly Loeffler, the people of Georgia have heard you loud and clear. They know that you are focused on you. They deserve a senator who will be focused on them. And I promise you, if you send me to the United States Senate, I'll wake up every morning thinking about what I can do for Georgia, what I can do for working people, what I can do for our seniors, what I can do for health care, what I can do for rural Georgia. Georgia, you will be on my mind every single day. And so, you know, she's been trying to misrepresent my record. Isn't it interesting? She's been there all of these months. And I find it very interesting that she hasn't even bothered to try to make a case for herself. She's been there 10 months. Hasn't even made a case for herself, why she should be elected. She's been there 10 months. It seems to me that you ought to at least try to make a case for yourself. But instead, she's been lying on me, lying on my faith, lying on my church, the spiritual home of Martin Luther King Jr. and John Lewis. As we say in church, scandalizing my name, calling me everything but a child of God. Well, my mama told me it's not what they call you, it's what you answer to. And in just a few days, she can call me Senator Warnock. And so, Albany, here's what you've got to do. You've got to stand up in this moment like you've never stood up before. If my parishioner, John Lewis, were standing here, he would say, we must vote like we've never voted before. Thank God for John Lewis. He taught us how to get in good trouble. He stood up for what was right. He was the conscience of the Congress. I hope to speak to the soul of the Senate. The last time I was at the United States Capitol, I was fighting for health care. I went there because the Congress was pushing a $2 trillion tax giveaway to the richest of the rich while taking resources away from the poorest of the poor. They were taking money from those who needed the most and giving it to those who needed the least. So I went to the U.S. Capitol Because I had not been elected a United States Senator yet, I had to make my argument in the rotunda of the Capitol. And I began to say that a budget is not just a fiscal document, it is a moral document. Show me a nation's budget, and I will show you your values. Show me your budget, and I will know who you think matters and who doesn't. Who you think is indispensable and who you think you can dispose of. A budget is a moral document. And I began to say that if this budget, which would give a $2 trillion tax giveaway to the richest of the rich, while taking resources from the children's health care program, if this budget were an EKG, it would suggest that America has a heart problem. And since I am a preacher, a kind of moral surgeon, I came to the nation's capital to perform moral surgery on a nation with heart trouble. The Capitol Police showed up that day. They said, we'll give you 3 warnings because you can't stay now and sing and pray in the rotunda of the Capitol. Somewhere I read that if my people, who are called by my name, would humble themselves and pray, if they would seek my face, turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven. I will forgive their sins and I will heal their land. I knew that the nation needed healing, so I gathered there with other clergy from various faith traditions, and we began to pray and sing, and the Capitol Police came. And they said, you've got to clear the Capitol or we will have to arrest you. Now, I was not mad at all with the Capitol Police. We are a nation of laws. When you engage in civil disobedience, you willingly accept the consequences. I wasn't mad with the Capitol Police. They were there doing their job. And I was there doing mine. And they said, we're going to give you 3 warnings. And then we'll have to carry you away. Well, you know, I'm the pastor of the same church where Dr. King served. So you know what I did. I stayed right there and began to hold vigil for the folk who were in danger of losing what they needed just to survive. And they carted us away that day. I don't mean to be dramatic about it because, you know, John Lewis and so many others endured so much more. I didn't mind. It felt like a small price to pay. I wasn't mad at those Capitol Police officers. In fact, I hope to meet them again. Matter of fact, I've got a feeling that in a few days, I might bump into them again. But this time, they will not be taking me to central booking. They can help me find my new office as the next United States Senator from the great state of Georgia. We can fight for health care, fight for a livable wage. I met a man in Montezuma, Georgia. As I talked to him, he stared at me through the veil of tears. He had lost his wife to COVID. And he wondered, was there anybody in Washington who cared? I met another young man in Columbus, Georgia, who lost his mother and his father to COVID-19. I was with another friend and brother just last night in Dublin whose father in his 90s contracted COVID, and he came to join our rally, but he had to rush over to the hospital, and he said to me, Pastor, I think this may be our last conversation between me and my father. The human toll is unspeakable. Public policy is a matter of life and death. And we need elected officials who have empathy, who know what it's like to walk with people. There's a reason why I've been making my way all across the state of Georgia, and I want you to know that I'm not just making my way across the state of Georgia while I'm running. I plan to make my way across this state after I'm elected. Because you can't lead the people unless you love the people. It's the people who make you a good pastor. And I believe that it's the people who will make you a great senator. And so although I hope to go to Washington, I don't want to spend all of my time in Washington, because if I spend all my time talking to politicians, I'm afraid that I might accidentally become one. And I have no intention of becoming a politician. I want to be a public servant. Because I follow the one who said that the one who would be greatest among you must be servant of all. So let's stand up, Georgia. Let's stand up, Albany. Let's make this happen. Are you ready to win this election? So I'm thinking about John Lewis. And as I run alongside my brother John Ossoff, a young Jewish man, son of an immigrant, I'm thinking about those who came before us and who had to give so much more. I'm thinking about Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel marching alongside Martin Luther King Jr. And when Heschel marched alongside Dr. King, he said, I felt like my legs were praying. In Albany, that's what we need in the days ahead. We need praying legs. If you've already voted, you need to call everybody in your network. Make a commitment tonight that you will reach out to at least 5 people, that you will worry them to death. I want you to call them, all right? Listen, I want you to call them like they owe you some money. Maybe they do owe you some money, but when you call them, tell them, don't worry about the money, I just need you to vote. Vote like your life depends on it, because it actually does. Tell them you can't sleep through this moment. There's too much at stake. I told you all those years ago, my dad didn't let me sleep late. He used to wake me up at dawn. The thing about dawn is that it's morning, but it's still dark. It's still dark, but you're sitting, as Maya Angelou said, on the pulse of morning. So I want to say to those of you who have had to navigate, like all of us, this thick darkness, hold on. Morning is on the way. And weeping may endure for the night, but joy comes in the morning. We've got work to do. Morning comes. I used to say to my dad when he would wake me up, what do you want me to do? He said, I don't know, just be ready. He said, you don't know what the day will bring, but just make sure you're ready for the day. And so I want you to make sure that you don't sleep through this defining moment in American history. As we witness politicians talking about challenging the certification of the election by the Electoral College, don't you know that you can't trust your democracy to politicians? This democracy belongs to the people, and the people have to rise up in this moment. Are you ready to reclaim your democracy? Are you ready to stand up for affordable health care? Are you ready to fight for a livable wage? Are you ready to win this election? Well, get on the phone. Call somebody, text somebody, tell them to wake up. Tell them to get dressed. Tell them to put your shoes on. Get ready. We've got work to do. If we walk together, if we work together, if we struggle together, if we pray together, if we stay together, we will win this election together. And more importantly, we will win the future for our children, all of our children. God bless you, Albany, Georgia. Great to be with you. Let's make this happen.